San Francisco for the man known as the Zodiac Killer.
There could be a serial killer in Chicago.
The Oakland County child killer.
Basin Killer.
Frankfurt slasher.
4 children have now been murdered.
Has killed 5 and says he's going to kill again.
15 brutally murdered young women.
The pattern is the same.
One by one, the death count started rising.
A man in a mask robbed, tied, and stabbed them.
Strangled, stuffed in burlap bags.
It is highly unlikely that these women were murdered by separate men.
Where will the killer strike next?
Police can't answer who or why.
That's the question that we'll never know.
I don't want to live the rest of my life wondering if this person's going to be caught.
All right, let's try this again. At least I'm not hearing an echo. And that's better than before. Like before, I was hearing an echo. It was driving me crazy. I don't know if you've ever heard that when you're on the phone with somebody. It's enough to drive you insane. And I had it in my ear and I was hearing it on here. There was a double me on the stage. I don't know how that happened. And I know that's where the echo came from. So I decided just to start this one over again. I don't know what happened to the other one. I guess it's still showing. But let me play the one with the Ted Bundy because that one is really interesting to me because not only did they find this gentleman that we're about to talk about 41 years later, Ted Bundy has been linked to another murder years ago. So let's go ahead and watch that. And here we go.
Authorities announcing today that they have closed a 52-year-old cold case in Utah and definitely tied it to the serial killer Ted Bundy. Now, Bundy was put to death in Florida in 1989 for a series of murders that he committed at
So Ted Bundy has been linked to this crime. I'm trying to work with the sound as best as I can. I don't know what the hell's going on with my sound. So please kind of work with me, okay?
52-year-old cold case in Utah and definitely tied it to the serial killer Ted Bundy. Now, Bundy was put to death in Florida in 1989 for a series of murders that he committed at Florida State.
Today, the victim's family in Utah spoke out about the impact on closing this decades-old case. News Channel 8's Jeff Patterson reports that a Florida expert on the Bundy case says there are still undiscovered murders that Bundy committed that have not been solved.
There is one man at St. Leo University in Pasco County who knows the Ted Bundy case and serial killers in general better than just about anybody else. And he is not surprised by today's announcement.
We now have definitive evidence proving that Theodore Ted Bundy murdered Laura, and we can announce that this case is officially closed.
In Utah County, the sheriff announced today Ted Bundy murdered 17-year-old Laura Ann Amy in 1974.
That evidence has endured the
1974, y'all. He murdered that 17-year-old girl. That is something that they are able to attribute that to him and close another cold case.
Years and was pristine.
Investigators used new DNA technology to link Bundy to the crime.
I was 12 when Laura died. She was 17, but we were really close.
Today, Laura's sister spoke for the family, thanking investigators for closing a case that has lingered for 52 years.
It's really quite amazing that people even are still interested in Laura's case. But I appreciate it. I really appreciate the evidence team.
Dr. Joseph Sillo at St. Leo University has studied the Bundy case extensively.
Why was he a killer? Because he was addicted to it. He was born to be a serial killer.
So think about that statement right there. That statement right there tells you a lot. Why was he a serial killer? Because he was addicted to it. Think about what we've talked about over the multitudes of lives that I've done about the psychology of a mindset of a serial killer. We talked about the urges, we talked about the fantasies. Now we have another person discussing the addiction to it. He loved killing.
Dr. Sillo says the murder of Laura Ann Amy is exactly like many of Bundy's other killings.
He was addicted to sexual violence. He couldn't get sexual satisfaction without the violence and terror that he instilled in his victims.
The murder of Laura Ann was gruesome, her body buried in American Fork Canyon in Utah. Bundy admitted to her murder just before he was executed in Florida.
Although Bundy did claim that he committed the murder of Laura, the confession he gave was deemed to be not enough evidence to close the case.
Sheriff Mike Smith says the DNA profile for Bundy they developed for this case will help other jurisdictions solve their cold cases. Dr. Sillo says Bundy moved across the country from Washington State to Utah and eventually Florida, killing women everywhere he went.
He moved from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. He was a master.
So how did that make you feel knowing that an individual such as Ted Bundy, I know he deceased a long time ago, but he's one of those killers that had been studied and studied and studied. How did it make you feel that he had no ties to his victim, so to speak? Because I remember studying his case and even doing lives on it. He didn't necessarily have a tie to his victims other than scoping them out and killing them, sexually assaulting them.
At that.
Dr. Sillo believes there are still bodies to be uncovered and cases that will still be linked to Ted Bundy that are still out there. In Pasco County, Jeff Patterson, 8 on your side.
That is something. That is something. Now let's get back to what I was playing earlier. Man, I apologize for having to close the live and being so unprepared. Sometimes those technical difficulties sneak up on you. Here's another cold case that we started discussing last night. The Texas killing fields. Think about this a minute. 41 years later, and they're able to identify this person, James Elmore Jr., based on not only new investigation, new eyes looking into the process, but also some of the interviews that he had with Tim Miller over the years that Tim discussed with law enforcement about things that this individual knew that there was no way that he would have known these things. So let's go ahead and start with this one. This happened this morning at 10 a.m.
He brought forward to some of the area law enforcement agencies do it because I don't want anybody to feel like there's never good, that this is done. We're never going to solve this murder. Therefore, nobody's going to do anything about it. This is an example of it took a while, re-examine the stuff, redouble our efforts, but we're able to solve one part of these murders. So nobody should feel demoralized or feel like nothing's going to be done or can't be done. Please provide all information to law enforcement agencies available because there are a number of unsolved murder cases in this county that still need to be solved. And we will, and I know the agencies will not give up. If we've got leads to act on and information to move forward, we will do it. And we will prosecute if we get enough evidence. So, thank you.
So just to recap very quickly before he goes on, for those of you that don't know the case, this case started appearing on the I-45 corridor between Galveston and Houston. And there is a section of oil field land in League City, Texas, where these bodies started popping up. It started in 1984, and it went all the way to 1991, I believe, with the last body. And there was over 30 females found in that field. These that he's specifically speaking on are attributed to Clyde Hedrick, James Elmore Jr. Let's listen to what he has to say.
We'll take a couple questions, but.
Has Mr. Elmore made any statements?
Sir?
Has Mr. Elmore made any statements?
Well, nothing since his arrest.
Is there any evidence that you can share that relates James to these actual crimes, anything at all?
Well, at this point, what's public record is what's in the indictment, the charges, what he was arrested upon. The defense will be able to obtain the discovery as soon as we know who the attorney is and move forward on that. And then at that point, once it becomes disclosed, we would be able to, discuss that further. But since this is a pending case, I don't want to get into that until, an attorney's been appointed or hired, discovery's been made, and that disclosure's already occurred.
Kenneth, you said too that they're looking into the other cases.
At this point, we do know that they were seeking indictment for Clyde Hedrick for the murders of those 4 at the Calder Road killing fields, as you will. And also, in the process, the grand jury indicted James Elmore Jr. As you know, Clyde Hedrick died 10 days ago, I believe, or so. Probably about 15 now. He was 72 years old. But he was attributed to these crimes. And we'll go more in depth on this as we go along.
In particular, the Shonda Rambler base over in Santa Fe. Santa Fe PD last year was digging up on her property where she had been. Elmore was the last person seen with her. They had said all along that he was the lead suspect. That's going to be one of the cases y'all looking into, his possible connection there.
Yeah, we don't rule out any leads, any further investigation that we have at this point, so I don't want to elaborate on that.
How much of a factor was Elmore's statements to Mr. Miller over the years?
Yes, sir.
How would you characterize the relationship? Were they friends, roommates, relations?
Who are you referring to?
Hedrick and Elmore.
Well, they were friends over the years.
For how long?
Decades.
See, he just said him and Clyde Hedrick were friends. They were known to have worked together. I did read an article earlier from Elmore's son, who said that they ran around together. Elmore had his own construction company. Hedrick was known to work in the oil fields and be a trucker. Specifically in that area, there had been sightings of his truck in the area around the time of these murders and things like that, but they could never specifically tie him to these 4 murders. DNA did ultimately tie him to Laura Miller and what's her name? Brooks. I'll think about it here in a minute.
Since the 80s
Audrey Brooks
that we're aware of.
How much of an impact did Mr. Elmore's statements to Mr. Miller have on getting this investigation moving forward?
There are certainly statements that are made that will be useful in the prosecution of the case, but those were not the only statements made by him, therefore not the only evidence. There were other statements made by Mr. Elmore, and then we have other evidence that we would consider corroborating or backing up and proving up the truth of what he said.
You said earlier that Hedrick murdered Laura Miller. He hadn't never been indicted for murder. What changed that you can say that today that hasn't been able to be said over the last 40 years?
Well, because I've only been in office, I haven't been in office 6 months. And so from my review, limited review and discussions with my prosecutors who have reviewed it thoroughly, there was additional evidence that was forthcoming that allows us to bridge that, which is in addition, includes the evidence against Mr. Elmore. He fits in the whole sequence of events. It's not just, these were separate events that occurred and can be isolated.
Let me ask you,
but if you just heard what he said, he fits in a whole sequence of things. So from 1984 all the way to 1991, there is obviously evidence that is tying this man to these murders. Elmore is being charged with I believe, first-degree murder and tampering of a corpse. So he was involved somehow, and I can't wait until we start getting like the affidavit and everything else, the arrest documents, all that stuff, because I am ready to see all of that.
He had just done an interview with a detective that's part of y'all's task force. He dies a few days later. Has there been a cause of death determined that y'all know of for that? The natural causes, suicide, what was it?
There was a finding in the hospital, exactly, that he took his own life.
Did he remove his trach tube? Is that how he did it?
Okay, if you're confused at who he's talking about, there has been a third person that was supposedly involved in these situations as well, these murders, but this person took their own life, obviously, is what he said. So there's 2 dead people, and then there's Elmore Jr., who's 61 years old, who has been indicted as well.
That's the understanding of what happened from the doctors at the hospital.
In your presentation to the grand jury, was it for all 4 murders against Hedrick, or just Laura and Audrey, or was it all 4?
Yes, it was for all 4 and included the activities of Clyde Hedrick as well as James Elmore.
So you felt confident that you would have gotten an indictment in all 4 murders against Clyde Hedrick?
Yes, I don't know what the grand jury, that's their ultimate decision, but I was confident we could have obtained that.
Okay, we're going to take one more question.
Sir, were there things that were missed over these past few decades that you would say led up to this indictment now?
Things that were missed? No, this was a re-examination of what we had. There were some efforts here in the last couple of years that brought things a lot forward and solidified them and such that we could do what we did yesterday.
Real quick.
That's it. That's it. Thank you very much. We're done.
I was just going to say, James, on his son.
Okay, now we're going to hear from the father, Tim Miller. Let's see where his is at. Go ahead and watch this one.
And the trial team are the persons present. It's Adam Poole and Caitlin Willis will be trying the case. They're both experienced prosecutors in the office, and 2 counts of tampering with evidence, felony involved with the deaths of Laura Miller and Audrey Cook.
Here because a major arrest made today. I'd put it the most heinous cold cases that have existed in this county. A big arrest today. Can you talk about that and the task force that came out of your office to get that done?
Yes, there was an indictment returned against James Elmore today. 1 count of manslaughter and 2 counts of tampering with evidence, felony involved with the deaths of Laura Miller and Audrey Cook between 1984 and 1991. There are a multitude of agencies have been working this case since that time. Over the years, a couple people have been prosecuted, but during 2024, Ms. Caitlin Willis, who works cold cases, started to take a deeper dive into this case to see what we had. I had a meeting during December with one of the victims' families, and at that time made the promise that I would gather in all of the evidence that the agency had developed over the years, and we would take a new objective look at it. That collection of evidence was done from all of the agencies that I mentioned, and Caitlin Willis then organized the evidence for me and began a deep dive and summarization of the evidence for me, and which culminated in presentment of this indictment today or this morning to the grand jury.
But think about this a little bit. This crime is 41 years old. Like he said, there have been people that were prosecuted, but they never had the definitive evidence of the 4 that were found in the killing fields, and there's multitudes of others that are unsolved people that were found in that field. He said they took a different approach. This is Galveston County. League City is a small area in between Houston and Galveston. So it's a very small town, even though it's like it's grown over, it's like a suburb, but in the 80s and 90s, it was nothing more than an oil field patches of land. I mean, if you look at the Calder Road, you do, in those photos back then, you do see a lot of overgrown brush, dirt road, things like that. So it would have been very easy to get away with this crime back then because they weren't having the manpower to be able to investigate it like they do now. And this is a new DA, so he took over about 6 months ago, and I guess this is what he was running on because he went head first in it.
The indictment was returned, arrest warrant was issued, and Mr. Elmore was arrested this afternoon by the Galveston County Sheriff's Department. And so we brought the case fast forward. There's a new objective look occurred during the last several months. The evaluation was made, and then we presented the case, and the indictment was returned. And we'll, now that he's in custody, prosecute his case. And it's my understanding this case was assigned to the 122nd District Court. And the trial team are the persons present. It's Adam Poole and Caitlin Willis will be trying the case. They're both experienced prosecutors in the office, and I entrust them. They've evaluated this, looked at the evidence, and they will be the ones who will prosecute this to completion.
You're a longtime prosecutor, mainly on the federal side, but still a longtime prosecutor. When you get a case like this, it comes up that obviously you still have a trial to go here. How big a deal is it to see justice done when you can sit down with the families and say, we got them?
It's very satisfying because seldom do you get to do that in such a fashion. I know justice has been a long time coming from what Mr. Elmore is accused of doing as it related to the 2 victims I named. And so I know it's got to be satisfying for the families to see something actually occur on the cases because I know they've been in agony for a long time.
Particular case, something that always kind of you had an interest in from a personal perspective, because you grew up in this area, and that's.
I grew up in Friendswood. That's where I came from. So I've been in county my entire life, and the killing fields was just such a case that existed forever. And a lot of them was the entire I-45 corridor of the girls who went missing. So it definitely affected my childhood and how my parents raised me and the protection of being safe, being close to family, keeping an eye on each other, because so many of these questions were unanswered. And even so.
I mean, like what she just said, can you imagine growing up as a small child or even a young adult, and they're having a serial killer, so to speak, dumping girls' bodies and women? There was very different demographics, age ranges, but, you know, can you imagine growing up in that, knowing that down the road, over 30 people have been dumped in this killing fields and nobody knows who did it? Nobody knows who did it. Growing up in that had to be traumatic.
So much as being careful around Calder Road. I know there was a day my tire popped on Calder Road, and my dad told me to keep driving because he could buy a new rim.
Yeah. Adam, you know, your experience in this office, you've seen a lot of cases come and go. We've had a lot of cold cases in the last couple of years. The Corvette concept's one of them that have come to justice. For you, as you see this and going to be working with Caitlin on this, how are you looking at this moving forward? Because now comes, as they say, the hard work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a big case, large investigation that compiles evidence from all across the county and over a number of years. And it's something that's just developed over time. Our job is going to be to take that and to package that in something that is palatable for a jury to prove his involvement.
And proving it's going to be obviously the big thing that has to be done. And without getting too far ahead into the case or anything like that, what kind of broke this to be able to come to this moment?
Ultimately, just re-looking at the case over the years, 40 years of investigators have looked at this case from all of the agencies that Mr. Cusick mentioned. And 40 years of hindsight, being able to look at everything. Once Mr. Cusick said, let's gather all the evidence that we have, gathering all of that, and then kind of proceeding with re-looking at this particular evidence, as well as re-interviewing witnesses and figuring out what we had and what we could put together to get to probable cause for an indictment.
One of the things is that while Elmore is charged in involvement with 2 of the 4 Calder Road Killingfield victims, you had another suspect, we would say, there with Clyde, and then he passed away. You were prepared to go to the grand jury also with Clyde Hedrick as well at the same time, weren't you not?
Yes, sir. The plan was to go to grand jury on both Clyde Hedrick and James Elmore. That plan had been in place. We were already working on going to grand jury this month. We're moving ahead as scheduled. Unfortunately, the passing of Clyde Hedrick came before that moment, but we maintained that full case in its entirety and presented that to the grand jury.
So in a way, because you can't indict someone who's deceased.
So think about what we've heard about the grand jury indictment. If you don't remember what a grand jury's purpose is, the grand jury's purpose is to review the evidence presented by law enforcement on the culpability of this individual, more than likely being the prime suspect that committed the crime. They were going to present evidence with Clyde Hedrick, as she just said, and they presented evidence with James Elmore Jr. So the grand jury did find enough evidence and probable cause to indict. So that means that they saw the evidentiary facts and discovery and the artifacts and maybe the physical evidence where they saw enough to place these 2 men at the scene to mean that they were more culpable than anybody else. And that's the reason that they indicted. Otherwise, if they wouldn't have fit that criteria and the grand jury came back and said, no, there's not enough evidence to make these people culpable, then they would have walked. But that's not how it happened. So that's what the purpose of a grand jury is, just in case you forgot.
But in a way, does this say, hey, we also got Clyde. He's been long suspected, but also here now with what you presented and what you'll be presenting in court, he was involved with this in all 4.
We were seeking indictments for Clyde on all 4. Like you said, we cannot indict somebody who's passed, and nor can the grand jury comment on whether they would have indicted somebody or not, nor could we disclose that. But we could not tell James Elmore's story without telling Clyde Hedrick's story. And so what I can say is for our living suspect, we have received indictments on all 3 charges.
Gotcha. What's next now? You said it's going to be in Judge Jones' court, but what's next? How fast does this train start rolling at this point?
It's going to be dependent on a lot of factors. We're going to make sure Mr. Elmore gets an attorney and see who that is. We'll have to share discovery and make sure that all of that's available to his defense attorney.
Okay, so at this point, like she said, he has to be given counsel, attorney, court appointed, or he has to hire his own. They have to start on the discovery, making sure that they give the defense the discovery in a timely fashion so both sides get the same kind of evidence. Also, what I was going to say is the judge, when Mr. Elmore Jr. was taken into custody or arrested, he was denied bond. So he is, in essence, in jail until they go to court because he doesn't have a bond. So it means that he can't get out of jail.
making sure that we keep in contact with the victims' families, discussions within our office, within administration and Mr. Cusick, and just go from there. Trials sometimes go very quickly in this county, and sometimes they take a while, and we're just prepared to do each step as it needs to happen.
And not to get too far ahead, but just to kind of give a feel for this, this is not circumstantial or hearsay evidence. You've got some solid evidence to go with this case, right, Adam?
Well, yeah, we would not have brought this to the grand jury if we didn't feel that we had enough evidence to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence comes in a bunch of different forms.
See, and that's something that people have to keep in mind in all the cases that we talk about on these channels, including my own, that if there's not enough evidence to indict somebody, you don't have a case. So he just said, we made sure that we have solid evidence enough to indict this man, to take him to trial, to more than likely try to prove that he was one of the culprits.
Forms, and of course, we'll have to fight any objections to them, but we feel that we have a strong enough case to bring in front of a jury.
For all of y'all right now, I mean, as I said, if there was one cold case in this county, and even though it's 4 separate cases when it comes down to it, this is the one. The Killingfield name that expanded comes from this. There have been a lot out there. We've had cases of whether it was Jennifer Schuett or it was Crystal Baker or William Reese's cases with Jessica Kane and Laura Smither here in recent history. I mean, we're not talking too long down. All of these come into culmination. Is it a combination of getting fresh eyes on this and the new DNA technology, or a combination of all that? What would y'all say is the secret that have started to see these cases that have just been lingering, even though no one's given up on them, to come to this point?
Okay. I think it's a culmination of a lot of things. Like I mentioned earlier, 40 years of hindsight, having some fresh eyes, of course, is important. And just kind of having that revitalization of digging deep into the investigation, as Mr. Cusick promised the families that we would. But in addition to that, it could not have gotten to this point without the hard work of Leak City in the 1980s, of Galveston County Sheriff's Office in the trial against Clyde Hedrick for Ellen Beeson, of the DA's office who looked at it. Then I know Kevin Petroff tried that case. Additionally, all the witness statements.
And let me give you a little refresher on Clyde Hedrick. He did get convicted of the killing of Ellen Beeson. He spent 20 years in prison. He was released on intensive monitoring. He was placed with a GPS monitor, and I'm kind of confused. I'm going to have to go back and read a little bit, because they said that he died in a hospital after being on parole. I wonder if he was living like in a halfway house or something like that, because it made it sound like he was being monitored from a location that would have been like having very strict interaction with him. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like, well, he was living at home, he just had a GPS monitor. It sounded like it was more intensive. So if that's the truth, that's why, they were able to supervise him so diligently.
Statements that were given then, and each agency has had a little bit. Hitchcock assisted in this reinvestigation as we went through. And I don't think any one piece in particular got us here, but it was everybody's little bit over the last 40 years. We finally got to tie it all together and get to where we are today.
Speaking of Leak City, one of the big things for them is when they were able to come out and they used advanced DNA technology to not only match up, but also get renderings of how Audrey may have looked, or how Prudhomme would have looked. And then after that release, their families came forward and got names to good, from Janet to Jan Doe to now names. How big was that a role in advancing the investigation?
Oh, absolutely. Knowing who the people involved are, who the victims were. Ultimately, there was 4 women found out there. And while we pretty quickly were able to identify Heidi and Laura, for a long time, we didn't identify Audrey or Donna. But once we knew their identities, that, of course, opened up a whole new branch of finding these connections and getting more about their story that we couldn't know before.
Y'all got to meet with the families today.
Yes, sir.
Soon after you got the indictment. Just in general, what was their reaction when you got to tell them this news?
It was an emotional moment because I think they were so frustrated that nothing that could near satisfaction, for them, or justice being served had happened yet. And so it was just an emotional moment for them to find out that there was an indictment returned, this person was going to be arrested, and that this prosecution would proceed. And so I think, but all in all, they were very happy with the efforts made by Ms. Willis and Mr. Poole and all the law enforcement agencies that have been working on this thing for the last 40 years.
And in fact, you had all the law enforcement come in, including some detectives who had worked on it before, has since retired. They got to come in and see your presentation beforehand, or not, but see the evidence beforehand. And what was their reaction to this?
I think a lot of shock. I think a lot of people have waited a really long time. I think the entire community cares about this case. It's touched everyone in some way, manner, or form. And just making sure everyone was on the same page and we all had the same goal, which was justice for the family of the 4 women.
That is, I want to play this one. Hold on a second, though. I think it's amazing how in time, it's almost like these cold cases, the individuals think that they're going to get away with it. But somehow, somewhere, time catches up to the criminal. Everything you just heard there is universal across the U.S. Universal. So that's how somebody prepares for a trial. You heard about the indictment, the grand jury indictment. You heard about the arrest. You heard of no bond. You didn't hear about the investigative process. You didn't hear about what was found, what was this, what was that. No, because that's not the sequence that this happens in. The next thing that's going to happen is he's going to be asked if he wants a speedy trial, or he wants one to be kind of like Koberger did. He wants his trial not to be a speedy trial. So he's going to be able to differentiate which one he wants. If he wants a speedy trial, they have to, have all of the evidence and all the witnesses and all these people and experts ready to testify within so many weeks. And that puts a lot of burden of proof on the prosecution, as is, them trying to prove that without a reasonable doubt, this man did commit this crime. But this man on the screen, he is a very, very special person to the state of Texas. His name is Tim Miller. He is the father of Laura Miller, the 16-year-old who was found in the killing field. She was one of the first victims found. Her and, God, I can't ever remember her name. I think they said her name was Amy. Amy, I can't ever remember her freaking name. It'll come to me here in a second. Let's listen to what Tim had to say.
Today I'm okay. I knew some things were coming. Of course, over the years, I've been very, very frustrated over this. I've shared this before, and I'll share it again. I think with everything that they had in the past, it's unexcusable that Clyde Hedrick had the opportunity to die without never being indicted, convicted on Laura, Heidi, Audrey, and Donna.
Audrey.
But, it is what it is.
Audrey Cook.
I don't want to say one thing. All the work's been done. I don't want to say one thing to jeopardize this case at this time. But I will say, and it's been put out there, Uh, over the last 4 years, I spent minimum of 30 times with James Elmore. I can say this, there was times that I left James Elmore and he told me some stuff and I was as strong as I could be in front of him, but I had to pull over and just sob and cry with the information I got.
And he reached out to you, right?
He reached out to me. For what reasons, I don't know. And I could say this, the first time I met him, he said, let's go for a ride. And I said, where? He said, let's go to Calder Drive. And that's where it started. And things just really moved forward from there. And
Can you imagine? Can you imagine meeting with a person that was possibly present when your daughter was murdered and knowing what he knew that went on in that field? How would you feel sitting down and then having this day come forward where he's indicted for his role? How would you feel as a father of one of the murdered girls in that field? How would you feel? I ask you whether you're watching now live or you're going to be watching on replay. Let me know how you would feel knowing that you met with your daughter's killer or somebody that had knowledge of it, and now he's been indicted for it.
I don't know. And I don't, just looking back at it, it's certainly taken its toll. And I spent so much time with Edie's family and everything. We've cried together. We've begged for help. I think that Edie's dad, in the very beginning when Edie was found and stuff, he had 32 cassette tapes, 1 hour on each side, 64 hours where he talked into it, in a diary that he wrote in, and he literally begged the detectives, please talk to him, please talk to him. They went, Laura Miller's name, or Clyde Hedrick's name was in his diary before Laura Miller disappeared.
How are you feeling about that?
Well, certainly there's a lot of mixed emotions, and this is bittersweet. The fact that my grandfather had a beat on Clyde Hedrick back in 1984, if he had been listened to by the current detectives at the League City Police at that time, these other girls would have lived a long life instead of the two monsters that murdered all of them. And
That is so sad to hear. I don't know how you can hear that. I was talking with somebody earlier, and I was talking about near misses. Life is full of near misses. And this shows that had somebody been listened to, somebody else could have lived. But since people ignored it, other people had to die. And 41 years later, it took that long for somebody to pay attention long enough to go back through the evidence and indict. That is sad. This case is so sad. If you can't get into this case, I don't know. I don't know whether you're really about that or if you're just into it for certain cases. But this is one of those that is more intriguing than some of the other ones that we do because of all the twists and turns. And you have to learn about this case from beginning to where we're at today. I have plenty of videos in my library. Go check them out. Go watch because they're long. There's interviews with him. There's interviews with Clyde Hedrick. There's interviews with the police. There's interviews with the FBI. There's a lot of interviews, very in-depth. Because if you really want to learn the case, You got to go back and watch the videos. I did the research for you. Go watch the videos. I put them together.
And I guess today, the way I feel, and I think I speak for my family, is that my grandfather's efforts did not go in vain, that his words are still speaking to the police and still trying to be heard. And maybe today is a result of all the work that he put in, all the searching, the fields, going and talking to people and doing his own investigation, because he just didn't feel supported that anyone was doing enough. And for us, it's sad that Clyde didn't get to pay for what he did on one hand. On the other hand, I'm glad that he no longer breathes a second.
That is sad, because Clyde Hedrick should have been indicted long ago. Because if you hear his story, you will understand that they were on to him from the very beginning. But for whatever reason, whether it be politics, whether it be small town America, whatever it was, they could never make it stick. There was countless other people. There was Robert Abel. He owned a stable right adjacent to Calder Road. He was a suspect by Tim Miller for a long time. He ultimately took his own life on the railroad tracks. But he was a very abusive man. He met the criteria to possibly be involved in this. You know, like when it comes to murders and situational things like this, we understand it is the proximity of the individual involved. How close is the individual involved to the proximity of the crime? So all these people whose names were high on the list, their proximity was right there. Right there. It was close. But for whatever reason, police could never put it together.
Air that we do here on earth, and that he's met his maker. And I'm sure that he and my grandparents are looking down on us and saying thank you for not forgetting and for letting it go.
Have y'all had a chance to talk to Donna and Audrey's family at all since all this?
Just by text. Yeah,
What's the sentiments y'all been sharing together just in general?
absolutely. It's a club you really don't want to be a part of, but you got to support each other. And, of course, thank God for Tim's platform that he could keep this in front of everybody and have the opportunities that the other victims' families didn't have because of the work that he does, and we're very grateful for today.
No.
Thank you, Tim.
I've said this 1,000 times. I'll just say it one more time. But, when I built that cross out there where Laura's body was found, and I'd walk up to it years and years and years ago, and I'd say, Laura, please don't hate your daddy, but I can't come out here anymore. I have to say goodbye. And literally, people, I'd be walking away and hear that little voice say, Dad, don't quit. Please don't quit. And I didn't know what the hell that meant. I think I do now. I don't want to slander anybody in this, but the information, the things that I worked on and everything before, and I think Heidie's family can testify to this also. The law enforcement back in that, they didn't want any of us talking together. None of us, period, the end. I don't know what the deal was there, and it really doesn't matter probably now. That police department made me miserable. That police department made me the main suspect. That police department wanted Tim Miller to walk away. I don't know the reasoning. If they would have listened to Heidie's dad, if they would have listened to me, and if anybody thinks Audrey Cook, Laura Miller, Donna Perdone, Heidie Fye, Ellen Beeson, if anybody thinks that is the only 5 people Clyde Hedrick murdered. You're all living in a delusional damn world because there's more to come, and I can guarantee you that. We're working with some detectives now also, and I anticipate a couple of these cases. I think we're getting some information, and I think we're going to find a couple more bodies. I think we're going to find a couple more. So this isn't over. You know, just because there's an arrest today and everything, don't think Tim Miller's going to walk away from Texas EquiSearch and quit helping families. No, I think we're just getting started again. So
God bless you, Tim. God bless you and your nonprofit organization, Texas EquiSearch. If you didn't know, he is the founder of that. He did found that whenever his daughter, he heard his daughter's voice say, "Dad, don't quit." He founded that and has been trying to help people find lost and closure. He was highly involved in the, I think he was involved with the Sebastian Rogers case. And I believe he was out there with the Riley Strain case. He has a lot of success finding a lot of different individuals that go missing. But think about what he just said. I think we're going to find even more bodies. And that just sent chills down my spine because you know what? I've been out there. I was boots on the ground on that location, and I was telling my co-host at the time, Jules, or Joy, as y'all know her, I was telling her, wouldn't it be weird if we were walking over some area that there's more hidden underneath the soil that we don't even know about? Because I was walking through that area and it felt creepy. It felt like nothing I've ever experienced. Nothing at all. When we got there, the wind was not even blowing. It was calm. It was calm. It was a gorgeous afternoon. It was probably a couple hours before sunset. We got over there, and once we got to the area where the memorial is at, the wind shifted and started blowing. And this cold breeze came about. I'll show you the video here in a minute. I've shown it at least twice, but let's get through this and I'll show you the video. That way, those of you that haven't seen it can see it. Those of you that have seen it, give me some grace.
you know, again, I don't want to say anything about this investigation after 41 and a half damn years. I'm not going to jeopardize anything that all of us have worked for out there. We got other girls to find. We got other girls to find. We got closure to bring to more families, and we're not going to quit, people. All these yellow shirts out here are the people that believe in what we do, and it's only because of our girls that were found out there. We made a promise that God and Lord would never leave a family alone. We're not going to break that damn promise. We got work to do, people. Thanks for y'all's support over the years. And it's been a long road. It's been a long road.
I just want to say, on behalf of my family, how much we appreciate the new district attorney, Kate, the assistant district attorney, Attorney Poole, and Detective Corey Wilson. We appreciate everything you guys have been doing for the last 2 years. And even though we weren't aware of everything, obviously your efforts have come to light, and we appreciate you.
You know, we were actually, we were actually doing a search helping a detective, Corey Williams, in Hitchcock on a missing person case, which we're going to pick that up. Corey, can you come up? Can I have Corey for a minute? anyhow, you know, and then Corey started asking questions about Laura and the Killing Fields deal and everything. And my God, he sunk his teeth in it. He went to Oklahoma. He's went to Louisiana. I became very, very, very close friends with him. And when I felt so alone in this thing, Corey Williams, what he did, let me know I wasn't alone. We're working cases right now with Santa Fe Police Department and stuff. You know, looking back on what we do today, Laura's death wasn't in vain. I've met the most wonderful people in the world. And all I can say in closing this is God had different plans for Tim Miller than Tim Miller had. And I think I'm just going to keep doing a little bit of his work.
Man, I want to meet that dude. He has such an aura about him. I respect people with that kind of aura. He represents the Texans that I know. It's that hard work, never give up mentality. And let me show that video right quick, and then I'll show one more video of James Elmore, and then we'll be closing out. Let me turn this down because it's kind of loud. This is actually the area. If you know anything about this case, this is the area where the girls were abducted. This is where Laura Miller and Audrey Cook were abducted from a gas station that used to stand here. And I'm going to be talking about this, and then we're going to head out by the Calder Road. I wish I would have slowed it down, but it goes too fast. But just hang in there. I'm going to try to turn the sound down because there's a lot of music, a lot of talking and laughing and stuff. So I'll narrate it for you because I was there. Here we go. A juice that I have, this used to be the old convenience store where Laura Miller and one of the other females made the phone call that we're never seeing again. We're about, I would say, 1.5 miles from Calder Road, and there's I-45. Well, thank you very much. See you soon. Okay, we're making a U-turn, and there is the oil field. So this right here is where the bodies were found mostly. If you can see my pointer off to the right here, there's an old oil field road. It's a dirt road, and there's a barrier to that road. You can't get down there, but you go down that road, and Laura's body was found down there, and Audrey Cook. I don't know why I said Heidi Fye. I guess she was found on the other side later on, but not at the same time. So we're about to go to Robert Abel's area. And we're about to pass Robert Abel's old stable where his old house was, and he had a trail riding business here. So this is in front. This individual was a suspect for a lot of years. Tim Miller had him as a suspect for a lot of years based on the history of this individual. But behind this horse stable business, horse riding business, there was a lot of oil field land. There were pumps, pump jacks, basically a lot of, overgrown grass. And I'll show you how tall the grass and stuff were here in a minute. As you can see, huh? I don't think so. As you can see, this is Robert Abel's old home. And back there are the stables where he used to have the trail riding business. And they have searched this area of his home multiple times. He even cleared out part of the land of this with some of the searches. This is Irvin Road. The Calder is on the other side, and we're about to go to the other side where the church is. And that, looking back, I wish I would have hopped that fence and gambled with going into that building just to get some footage. Jules asked me if there were no trespassing signs. I didn't see any, but I didn't want to chance it because this is an active investigation crime scene. I mean, even though they're still not out there investigating the crime scene, this is still a crime scene. They didn't tear down Robert Abel's shop. So any evidence that could have been found in this area, if it was still in there and, people have gone in there or whatever, then they're impeding on an open investigation. You know what I mean? So, and you're getting trespassing charges. And this is a very high profile case, so it wouldn't have been a good idea. As you can tell, it is not that far from where we're about to go, where the girls were dumped. Up the road here, you can definitely see how not much has changed back there. I mean, I'm sorry about the shakiness of the camera. This is my first live, and I guess my excitement would just making me go all over the place with the camera. But if you can envision this type of shrubbery all over, and probably a quarter of a mile, if that, up the road here, that's where those bodies were found. Where we're going to go is a memorial that was made for these individuals that were murdered, the 4. But most of the bodies were dumped off in these brush and trees. The 30 bodies. Forestry area. This man committed suicide on the railroad tracks due to Tim Miller and a lot of other accusations about him possibly being involved in the murders. You hear the gunshot? I am definitely going back probably in about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. And I'm going to take slower footage. I'm going to be more confident on what I'm doing. This was like the first time I had ever done any kind of boots on the ground, so I was nervous. I was trying to talk, trying to get the information right, plus get the shots right and everything else. It was very raw, very uncut. I hope you're enjoying it. You hear that? Fireworks. Let me give you a little backstory about Robert Abel.
Yep.
Robert Abel was said by one of his first wives that he would abuse the animals and that he was very violent individual, and he had a lot of pornography of pictures of young women, and police investigated that and also found that there was no tie to any of that would have been implicated him into being a potential suspect. But as you can see, this is his past residence. And we're about to go to where the girls were found. So this video was taken in January. It looked like a little heavier than, wow. Camera had 20 pounds, right? Y'all agree with me in the chat. So now we're going to the memorial.
And there's people that like are relatively close now, you know?
Right. And that is my friend Jules talking. We're actually behind the memorial. We're actually going through the
But yeah,
path,
back then.
the path
I
that
don't
has
know
been carved through there.
how close people were. Yeah, back when all that was happening.
True. I mean, one thing that Jules focuses on is these mattresses, and I can see why. These are weird places to have mattresses. Like somebody came and dumped these mattresses or even used them out there, which is sick to think about. But think about the area where we're talking about. These girls were murdered in this spot, in these areas. So it wouldn't surprise me if there were some sick people that would brought mattresses out there and either taken other victims out there and maybe not killed them. Maybe they've, like, that's been a fetish. And I don't want to get dirty on this, but that's a weird ass place to have a mattress. And Jules is very fascinated by it. How is that? So look at the ground. Look how thick the grass is. Okay, so I was thinking to myself, please do not let me come across either decaying body, any kind of bones, any kind of anything that would resemble a decaying human corpse. I was freaking out, praying that I wouldn't come across any of that. And thank God I didn't. But as Tim Miller, he said there's going to be more bodies that are going to be found. So think about if there is actually bodies that have been buried that have not been found. And maybe one of the people confessed because Clyde Hedrick was interviewed before he died. He was interviewed on his deathbed. So we don't know if he admitted to certain locations that there were people that were buried, dumped, whatever. I mean, because just because they're decomposed doesn't mean that you still can't maybe find a, part of a skull or maybe, a leg bone or something, a tooth. I mean, it could be anything. So it's wild to think that in being there. That's a small mattress right there. This is the back side of Soldier Road. Soldier Road is in front of the church. This is the church that has brought the land to and made a memorial out of the 4 girls. And we're about to show the girls' graves here in a minute. This is the backside of Irvin Road, where Robert Abel lived. Not far straight ahead. What we just showed you a while ago. Over 30 females have been dumped in this area from 1983 to 1981. That is not right. 12 gauge, 1984 to 1991. Correction. Along this Interstate 45, as you can hear the cars in the background, there was 11 girls that were murdered that started this whole process, just dumped. But these 4 were found not long. And here's some unsolved. This case has never been. See, that was the first time that I had ever heard of his name. Like, Tim Miller was putting Robert Abel's name out there, and I agree with him 100%. I don't think he was innocent. Whether he actually killed anybody, I don't know, but he wasn't innocent by any means. So I understand why Tim would be putting his stuff out there like that so heavily, trying to dig into all that. But this guy, when I saw this little poster thing, I thought, oh, who the hell is this? Been solved. Laura Miller, her dad is Tim Miller. Audrey Cook, Hattie Spy, and Donna. Ellen Beeson. If you have any kind of information, be sure to call the FBI or Texas City office. That's the first one he got convicted on killing was Beeson. That one right there. He went to prison for killing her. Clyde went to prison for killing Ellen Beeson. So once he got out, like I said, he was on intensive supervision, and then he died probably about 14 days ago. He was 72 years old. If you have any kind of information, be sure to call the FBI or Texas City office at 409-935-7327. Alleged serial killer Clyde Hedrick. Heidi was a waitress at a local honky tonk, and she was found naked, strangled, with her arms crossed across her body, just like all the rest of these. It was wild to be out there, like, honestly. It's not like being at a cemetery. There's little benches, as you can see right there. And the church that bought this land and set up this memorial, they have plans for making this a park. And they're going to turn it into called the Healing Fields to take the moniker of killing off of it. But walking around this area, I don't know. It's hard to explain. If you've ever been in a place where something tragic has gone down, such a murder, somebody died, you always feel an extreme presence. And can you imagine searching for these young girls, not knowing they're even here, and a family supposedly were just out here having a picnic, and their dog brought a skull. And that's how one of the females was found. I can't believe I didn't have my GoPro. And as they found the one, that's whenever they found the other Jane Doe. I took a video camera, and I think this is being shot by my phone. The GoPro would have given it better color.
And lock the door.
I locked it.
In there.
I locked it. Well, look at all that brush. So if you're going to be on the other side where most of the bodies were found, chances are the brush would like this on both sides of the road. Like there was a dirt road, and it would have led through brush this thick. So if you're wanting to get off the road, throw a body, throw it out on the side of the road on the other side, nobody would have been able to see that from Irvin Road or Calder. Like, what I've heard is that family that was on the picnic, they were the first ones that, the dog brought up a skull, and that started the whole investigation. So think about two bodies being dumped in an off area like this, where you can't just, walking down this path right here, it was still thick enough you couldn't see the roads. You could hear it, but you couldn't see it. It was starting to get dark, and I didn't want to get trapped out there in the dark. Call me chicken, call me scary, whatever. I didn't want to do it. I was paranoid as is.
It's a little unusual.
Because, you're looking around and you're thinking, what the hell is that? What is that? What is that?
That's a little
Even
unusual.
though it's been decades.
Not one, but two beds. That's a bed. That's a bed.
The
That's
Jules
definitely a
is
mattress.
fascinated
Mattress
about
cushion,
that.
at least. And that's definitely a bed. Like somebody's gotten some action out here. You know? Like, what a weird ass fucking place to be fucking. Right? You know what I mean? What a weird ass place to be fucking.
I wasn't thinking about that at the time. I was like fixated on the shrubbery and everything I was seeing, because it was so surreal that I wasn't really. I was kind of in shock that I was there. You know what I mean? I was like, wow.
What is that?
Large and in charge, boy.
Is that a
Your boy is large and in charge over there.
Whoa, that's a big ass snake. Holy shit. That's a big ass snake. That's no.
Imagine that being a dirt road, shrubbery on both sides. So easy to conceal a body. I don't know if my mind was playing tricks on me, but I kept hearing shit. I'm not bullshitting just to say it. Honestly, I kept hearing stuff, like, not like audible voices, but it just felt creepy as hell. I don't creep out that easily. I really don't.
About what?
About all this.
I think it's a weird place to be fucking. I think it's a huge ass fucking snake. Like, did you see the fucking size of it?
Right behind the church.
Come look at this. Come look at this. Come look at this. Look.
If you haven't watched the video that I posted earlier, where it says trap house or something else, go check that out. I walked through that this weekend all by myself with my GoPro, and I was just, highlighting the house in slow motion. It looked like something else was sinister happening in there.
That's fucking huge. I don't know. That looks like a big snake to me. Yeah.
Obviously, this is like marshland because it's close to the coast. And if all that area down there is like bayous and all this area, because they used to, I guess in League City was very popular for oil. And had a lot of oil patches and stuff like that where people would go down and check on the tanks and stuff like that. And that's what Hedrick used to do for a living for a long time. He worked on in the oil field. And the other guy, Elmore Jr., he ran a construction company, but no telling what else he did. I mean, he was friends with Hedrick, so no telling how long they ran together. You know what I mean? Decades, it was said. And George was tripping me out too. I was like, hey, did she find something?
In the middle of the woods.
Hmm.
Can you imagine those girls being the last on a life in these woods?
30 people were found out here? 30?
30 people.
So are their bodies actually buried back there where the graves?
Yes.
They were actually buried there. So their families never did anything with their remains. Oh. You want to keep walking?
We can have that.
Let me fast forward it. Here's the road I was telling you about. You go and watch this when it says, come with 12 and Joy as we go out to Texas killing fields in League City. But this is the road that I was telling you about. There was a gate there when we passed by as I made that turn. When you saw me first make that turn and there's like new tanks right here. Well, this is the road. And Laura Miller and Audrey Cook were found almost side by side off to the right-hand side. They weren't found where the memorial is. A lot of people do not know that, but they were actually found off this area over here. And if you look at the overhead view, you can see how there's a lot of, dirt roads where people going, checking tanks and, all kinds of stuff back in the day. So it would have been easy just to go down this road in the middle of the night or even in the middle of the day, dump somebody out. Unless somebody came right after you, they would have never found that person. I think she was not found for a month. Laura wasn't. And then Audrey was a Jane Doe because they didn't have her DNA or anything. They didn't have any kind of identification. And the other two, Heidi and Prudhomme, Heidi was found way over there, like in these woods, and Prudhomme was found further down to my right on an old abandoned road. So think about that. I mean, let me see if I can pull up the map right quick. I've done this a lot. So if you've seen this already, like I said, give me some grace. Because there's a lot of people that don't know about this case. And I'm trying to educate them on exactly the area where, okay, here's Irwin Street right here. This is the street where I made the turn. We were right here. I made the turn. And I said, we're on our way to Robert Abel's place, which is right here. This is where you saw me pull along. Hold on, let me pull the map up. I'm talking and y'all ain't even seeing what I'm looking at. Hold on a second. I apologize. Usually I have people correcting me. 12, I can't see it. Oh, here we are, okay? Okay, this is Irwin Road. This is where I came in on, right here. I made a right. You saw me talking. We were laughing and joking. This is where the new battery tanks are. This is where you saw me pull into that little driveway right there. And this is where I did the kind of like on the spot stuff. We pulled up over here. Here's the church. We parked right here. Here's the memorials right here. And let me see. I guess they didn't have like the trail cut out. But this is the trail that we went in. We went through here, this little area. And we were walking. So whenever this was taken, obviously it was overgrown. And as you can see right here, it looks like there used to be some kind of oil field stuff, but that's the road that Laura was found in Audrey. Laura was found right around here. Audrey was found over here. I think Prudhomme was found over here. And Heidi was found over here. So that's where 4 of the 30 were found. But Laura, so if you can see this road, look, if it was still there in 84, 86, think about somebody going off right here, dumping a body, backing up and never being, go back out here, get here, I-45s right here, and they're gone. So a lot happened in these fields. And most of the bodies were found here. 2 were found in this vicinity, and 1 was found over here. So let me show you a video of the individual that was indicted. These fields are in League City, Texas, in between Galveston and Houston on I-45. Let me show you where the individual that was indicted. And then I'll take some questions from the audience. Do I have any questions after I play this?
Case of the Texas killing fields continue to develop more than 4 decades later. The second suspect in that case, James Elmore, was indicted and arrested yesterday, and now the Galveston County District Attorney sat down with 2 investigators, Robert Arnold, to discuss the details on that indictment. He joins us now live with the update. So, Robert, tell us, what have you learned about this?
A lot in the last couple of hours. We just got copies of the 3 indictments filed against James Elmore. The manslaughter indictment reads that Elmore prepared a vial of cocaine for Clyde Hedrick to administer to Laura Miller. The 2 tampering with evidence indictment.
Whoa. Whoa. I've never heard that. I've never heard that. Let's play that again.
To administer to Elmore prepared a vial of cocaine for Clyde Hedrick to administer to Laura Miller. The 2 tampering with evidence indictments read that Elmore saw Laura Miller and Audrey Cook being dumped in the so-called killing fields in League City, but didn't report their murders to anybody. Laura and Audrey are 2 of 4 murders in the so-called killing fields case.
So Elmore, the one that was just indicted, gave Clyde Hedrick cocaine, and he shot up Laura Miller with it. So that probably killed her. Same way he probably killed Audrey. Wow.
As for the man who is considered the prime suspect in all 4 murders, Clyde Hedrick, we learned today his death was ruled as suicide.
I think with everything that they had in the past, it's unexcusable that Clyde Hedrick had the opportunity to die without never being indicted, convicted.
Laura Miller's father, Tim Miller, has been pushing the DA's office for years to take this case to a grand jury. When District Attorney Ken Cusick took over the office late last year, he met with Miller.
Okay, so I'm going to correct myself. This is new information to me, so I hope that you're enjoying the fact that you're getting it here first, too. Clyde Hedrick died of an apparent suicide. Okay, the other guy, the third guy that supposedly was involved as well, died, I guess, of natural causes. We're going to find out in time because I'm going to keep following this until we get to court and see whether this man's going to be sentenced to life in prison or death, We'll see. Even if they do pursue the death penalty, because here in Texas, we believe in that.
I told him that I would obtain everything that we could from any of the law enforcement agencies that had ever worked on the case, that I would give it a new objective look at everything, which occurred.
It was kind of a progressive building of the evidence, and law enforcement continued to review it, and then they would go back and re-interview people.
That fresh look led to indictments against Hedrick's friend, James Elmore. Miller said Elmore started calling him 4 years ago, divulging details of the murders. Cusick said those statements, as well as other evidence, helped secure the indictments.
He has made numerous statements and, yes, has implicated himself, and that would be part of the government's proof to determine or prove his guilt.
Clyde Hedrick, who has long been considered the prime suspect.
There he is, old Clyde. So Clyde committed suicide while in a hospital. He was 72 years old. He just recently died. I did a podcast on his death, thinking that was going to be the end of it. There wasn't going to be anything else. They hadn't had any kind of updates on anything. Then, boom, we get an indictment yesterday. I'm on it.
In all 4 murders, died less than 2 weeks ago. Prosecutor Kate Willis says he killed himself at a Houston hospital.
He was taken to the hospital for some breathing issues on Friday, and due to some of his other health issues, he was placed on a ventilator Friday, and it was on Saturday that he removed that ventilator.
Willis says the office was on the verge of asking a grand jury to also indict Hedrick in all 4 murders.
This isn't a one-person thing. It's not that we put this together just with the people sitting here. This came from everyone who's touched it from day one.
Elmore remains in the Galveston County Jail. The district attorney's office is asking that he be held without bond. Elmore has asked for a court-appointed attorney, and the court is in the process of getting that done. Reporting live from Galveston, Robert Arnold, KPRC 2 News.
Court-appointed attorney. So we got 2 new things from just 2 different broadcasts. Whether they're true or not, it's alleged, right? Allegedly, he did that. Allegedly or not, he would have been 19 or 20 years old whenever these murders occurred. So the fact that that individual just said he saw Laura Miller and Audrey Cook be dumped in the Calder Road field. So he was an accessory after the fact. What are you confused about? Go ahead and type in there. Maybe I can clarify it for you. You might have to go watch the other videos to really make it make sense, because I know it's confusing because we're at the end of it where there is an indictment. And for a lot of people, they don't know what really happened that built up to this point. So that's why I suggest that you go and watch those videos in my library, and they are labeled the Texas Killing Fields. And there is a documentary on Netflix called the Texas Killing Fields as well, that could clear up some things. Um, there's been 30 women. Yeah, Clyde killed himself. I thought he died of natural causes. I mean, that's what I reported. It wasn't, it wasn't said anywhere that he killed himself. So that just blew me away. That just blew me away. No, the other guy, I mistook the statement for the other guy that died as him killing himself and Hedrick dying of natural causes. But now we find out that Hedrick killed himself. The other guy probably just died of natural causes or whatever was going on with him, because they would be older. Hedrick was 72, Elmore Jr. is 61, so no telling how old the other guy was. But they've yet to release his name. So the media gets little nuggets that they release, and that is interesting. I'm going to keep following up on this. If you're enjoying the investigative part, jump on in with me, and let's go with this all the way to the end to see if there is going to be a speedy trial, if he's going to go against the speedy trial and go, as we saw in the Idaho 4 case, where they go through the motion hearings, the suppression hearing, the discovery, all that stuff leading up until the eventual trial. So the individual that died at the track was Robert Abel. He was the one that owned the horse stable that was right next to the Calder Road, where I started at the very beginning, standing by that gate talking. That's the guy that died on the railroad tracks. He was a suspect by Tim Miller in the early goings, and he was a very violent man. So, I mean, I could see why he was supposedly a high suspect. You know what I mean? So, like I said, if you're enjoying the coverage, we don't do true crime here. We do an investigative podcast, totally different. As you notice, I didn't talk about my thoughts, my feelings, my opinions. That's true crime. If you're tired of that and you just want to stick to the facts, then you're in the right place. I hope to see y'all coming back. Now, as I always do, y'all have a wonderful evening. Maestro, cue that music. See y'all soon. Make sure you have your notifications on so you don't miss anything. I will be streaming from my Facebook page probably April 4th or so. I'm able to do that. So if you are not a friend, I guess, they're not subs over there. So if you're not a friend on my page, it's called 12 Gauge Investigative. It's TWELVE and then Gauge Investigative. The link is on my page and this QR code. You can click on that to get the quick link to my page. I'm trying to make it easier for everybody. Go friend up. It's open for anybody. It's free. And you'll be able to catch the lives over there if you're not able to catch them here. So until next time, we're going to cover this case until the trial. We're going to deep dive and we're going to find out exactly what has been hidden in these 41 years. Maestro, cue that music.